Hello, hello. Welcome to a special edition of DeOrganized. I am PeaceLoveMusic. We have a great show for you today. We have Andre Serrano from the well, he's the main dev on Stacks SIP 028 for sBTC, the signer criteria. And we have an awesome panel of guests. HeroGamers joining us, Stacksy, Haddy, and Gary. And I'm excited to kind of bring this information to the ecosystem and get all of the Stacks community up to speed on what's going on with sBTC signer criteria and what the vote actually means. Welcome, Andre. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining. And I guess we'll go around the room and say hi to everybody a little bit. Hero, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm great. Love this new setup. Typically I do it on Zipco, but I love communities taking part in this because at the end of the day, just happy to see the information get out there to all corners of Stacks. That's what's important.
Yeah, that's really what we're working on here. And Hero and I have been, and a number of us have been working on getting more community involvement and engagement in the SIP process. And what better way than to bring this out in this kind of forum where people can refer to it after the fact. And welcome, Stacksy. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
I'm awesome. It's actually pretty cool to see everyone's face like this, except Heroes. But I'm sure he's also beautiful. And yeah, I'm just representing the non-technical people here, and we'll spread this info into the community. So yeah, I'm happy to learn new stuff.
Yeah, you've been doing some great work with your onboarding spaces and bringing some onboard users early information to help them come into the space. Haddy, how are you today?
Hey, I'm amazing. I'm really looking forward to this. I was geeing everyone up in the private chat. So I'm really, really looking forward to this. And it's a great show to follow the morning show.
Yeah, man, I'm just doing shows and shows and shows on top of each other. It's starting to mess with my head.
You're the showman.
Forgetting where I am. Yeah, it's I didn't realize there was this much demand for live content in our space, but apparently there really is. And we're happy to provide it. We're super excited to be here. Gary, good morning to you, sir. How are you doing?
Good morning. I was just trying to figure out how to share this in a DM, but yeah, no, I'm good. I'm excited. sBTC has been one of those things where it's I know it's going to be amazing, but it's kind of eluded me in the sense that I haven't really spent time reading up on it, focusing on it. There's only so much time. And yeah, I'm excited to have the man here, ask some questions. And I think for zero to clarity and things like that, this is obviously something that's going to be integral. So.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, Gary is running a intro to clarity coding project called Zero to Clarity every Thursdays at noon. You can tune in to see him. And it's great for anyone that just is looking to even understand how smart contracts on Stacks works. You don't have to be a dev or even an aspiring dev, but by the time you're done with the class and absorb the information he's putting out there, you will understand how to write and deploy some simple smart contracts on Stacks. And I've been kind of sitting in on when I can some great stuff in there. So thank you for that, Gary. And just to kind of give everyone a little bit of just a general idea. What sBTC is. sBTC is a one-to-one peg in direct from native BTC into a bridging into Stacks and as a SIP10 token, which will be deployed throughout the Stacks ecosystem. And it's going to open up a tremendous amount of opportunities in Stacks and beyond. Right now, there's already agreements in place where it's going to be deployed on Aptos and Solana, and I believe other chains probably are going to be coming on board with that too. So it's really going to unlock a ton of locked up liquidity for Bitcoin in general. It's going to be an amazing thing for the space. SIP28, I do want to point out, and Hero and I were chatting about this before, SIP28 is not an approval of sBTC. Everyone wants sBTC. There's no vote on that. This is to set up the signer criteria, or the job qualification for signers, which is the mechanism for how we secure peg in, peg out of BTC into the sBTC, and then sBTC back out to native Bitcoin. So what's being worked on now is the criteria, what the qualifications are for the entities that will be put in place and trusted to some degree with the process of pegging in, pegging out. So without further ado, Andre, first of all, correct me where I might have gotten that wrong, and or give us a little bit more on what the general overall situation is with SIP28.
Yeah, no, I think you did a great job of breaking down the context there. I mean, first I want to start by saying, yeah, it's great to be on the show with you all this morning. And, next week is really a pretty big week for the whole ecosystem, right? Not only do we have Nakamoto going live on mainnet early in the week, this SIP voting process really is the first step in the sBTC activation process. So really excited to kind of get that started. But yeah, PeaceLoveMusic, I think you did a great job kind of breaking down sBTC at a high level. Just to recap a couple of things, right? sBTC allows you to use Bitcoin in DeFi and decentralized smart contracts. It's always backed one-to-one with BTC, so it allows you to move Bitcoin into from the L1 to the L2 and into decentralized apps. And it does this through this decentralized network of signers that are responsible for maintaining that one-to-one backing at all times. And so that's really why we have started with this SIP28 to basically define the criteria for how these signers should be elected, because they have such a key role in securing the sBTC protocol, maintaining its liveness. We felt that it was really important that the community has a chance to weigh in on the selection criteria for how these signers are approved. And then so there will be, I think that, again, this is just the first step in this process. But here, actually, maybe I'll pause there and see if you have any initial follow-up questions to that.
No.
I don't have any specific follow-up questions to that general. Well, I guess, what is the basic criteria that we're looking for in, what is the criteria for these signers? What is the minimum criteria that they need to meet to be qualified to participate in this?
Yeah, so maybe let me give a little bit of context there too, right? So earlier this year, when Stacks 2.5 activated, we essentially launched a signer network on Stacks. And so this basically introduced a new role in the Stacks ecosystem where miners and signers now have to collaborate in order to ensure the liveness of the Stacks blockchain, where miners are essentially proposing new blocks, signers are validating them, and they kind of have a check and a balance there on how miners create new blocks. And so what sBTC does is essentially takes, for this launch, we'll take a subset of these Stacks signers and basically qualify them for the sBTC protocol. And so, for this signer set, it was really important that we worked with signers that were already familiar with signing Stacks transactions, because the technology, the process that signers will have to go through to sign sBTC transactions is very similar to what they're already doing signing Stacks transactions. And so we really wanted to select from the overall Stacks signer ecosystem. As of today, I believe there's around 30 unique signers on the network, give or take. And basically for sBTC, we wanted to launch with 15 to start. And basically by having this approved signer set, it allows us to really simplify the sBTC protocol at launch. We can work with some signers that have a higher degree of trust in the community to really ensure that we're activating sBTC in a way that is safe and secure, and we can gradually decentralize the protocol over time. And so really what we're looking for sBTC signers are a couple of things. One, that they have experience signing stacks, as I mentioned, like that is important. Two is that they have a history of high performance and uptime. So because the signers have such a key role in the liveness and security of sBTC and the Bitcoin that is being stored in the protocol, it's very important that they are, the infrastructure is top notch, that they have sort of this history of contributing in that way. Three is that these signers should be able to have extremely proactive communication with Stack's core developers. So, we have relationships with many of these signers, and having a direct communication line, a track record of being able to respond to updates and questions and any issues within a reasonable time frame, within 24 hours max, ensures that these signers will be able to respond to any updates that may come up during the sBTC protocol. We have qualified signers based on their actual contributions to the Stacks network and to the Bitcoin ecosystem broadly. It was really important to find signers that were long-term oriented, that were aligned with the vision, and sort of have that more strategic value to the sBTC signer set. And then lastly, we're just looking at it from how can we ensure that we are launching with a diverse and distributed signer set at launch, right? So we're looking at the geographical distribution of signers, making sure that they're not all concentrated in one jurisdiction, and making sure broadly that the signer set is well distributed across a variety of different jurisdictions there. So that's really the framework that we used. Again, we started out with around 25 applications to become an sBTC signer, and then basically we've been able to use that criteria to narrow down a list of 15 that we're proposing for this initial signer set.
Very cool. So,
or not yet?
What'd you say?
Are you gonna let us know which ones have you chosen yet, or not yet?
We are. So it's actually in the SIP. There is a link to them in the SIP. I can link it to you guys here.
So the SIP GitHub too is right. You can scan the QR code up here, and that'll take you to the SIP GitHub as well.
Wow.
And we'll also put that out in the comments below. Actually, I'm going to share that out right now.
Yeah, while you're sharing that up,
Yeah.
so there will be metrics, will there, Andre? So you'll have metrics by which you measure the signers.
Yeah, exactly. So
Okay.
As part of the SIP, it was important for us that we have some falsifiable criteria for this, right? And so we're working on, exposing metrics for signer uptime. They need to be able to, guarantee that they are meeting a certain threshold for performance and communication and all the kind of criteria that I just walked through.
Is there also a top end limit of how many signers there can be, or is it the sky the limit?
Yeah, so for this first launch, the upper limit was 15. Once you get beyond 15, it introduced a lot of technical complexity to the protocol. And so 15, both in terms of the protocol and also the coordination overhead of that, right? And so 15 was like the perfect number where it is really a distributed signer set, but allows us to have, a slightly easier process in terms of managing this launch.
Perfect. And then when we're looking at voting for it.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Gary.
I was going to say, is there a goal in mind, like how that would sort of grow over time, or have you thought about that at all? seems like it's quality over quantity right now, and just making sure that you can manage it.
Yeah, for sure. Right now, it's quality over quantity. When we start to look out to future versions of sBTC, we have a lot of ideas in mind for how this can decentralize. I think ideally, the process of becoming an sBTC signer and a stack signer becomes essentially one and the same. So it, the long-term goal is to transition towards a more open signer set that can support the full range of signers that we have on the network, seeing that growing to 50 plus over the next year. But yeah, those are some of our long-term goals that we have there, Gary.
What is the incentive? What is the incentive to be a signer? Like, what does a signer get out of it?
Good question.
Yeah, so all of the signers are signing on the Stacks network right now, and so in order to do that, they are locking STX, or they are operating pools of users that lock STX, and they're earning Bitcoin rewards as part of this. And so that's one of the things that I think makes sBTC as unique, is that these signers are economically incentivized through participating in the Stacks network from earning Bitcoin, which is a pretty unique value proposition that Stacks can offer there.
So they're earning Bitcoin by being Stacks signers. So they have a vested interest in sBTC being a solid project because they're earning in Bitcoin and they're doing it through Stacks. So yeah, that is a very unique, but also very functional incentive model there. Very cool.
I just have like a question. These signers, are they limited to only our ecosystem, or they're also signers for other chains and for other?
It's a bit of a mix. It's not a requirement that they are only signers for our ecosystem. I think we have been fortunate to really work with a best-in-class group of signers, and so many of them are signing for many other blockchains, and these are professional companies, right? They have top-of-the-line infrastructure to be able to support their operations, and so we do see that a lot of them are also signers on other blockchains.
So just in the spirit of transparency, like I see the list here. Can we just like quickly say the names? Because not everybody kind of reads this stuff. But I see
go for it.
Alum Labs, right? Asymmetric, and everyone, it shows their qualification and strengths, which is really cool. Like they're big for uptime. Asymmetric research, high performance infrastructure and security. Bitcoin 2 Labs, extensive knowledge of sBTC. Block Damon, I think we know a lot about them. Are very early with us. Chorus One, uptime and support other networks. Deegan Labs, long commitment in the community. Stacking experience. D-Spread, I think a lot of us know also. Same thing. Fast Pool, Figment, I'll just kind of go faster killing, or maybe I'm saying them wrong. Luga Nodes, Sensei Nodes, Stacking DAO, Restake, and Xverse. So that's a cool list.
Yeah, it is a cool list. And just to kind of recap again, a good mix of like institutional, professional operators, a lot of really well-known companies in the ecosystem. When you look at Stacking DAO, Xverse, Degen, like these are folks that have been long-term contributors that have businesses built around Stacks, and so a really good mix of different sorts of organizations represented there.
Cool.
So aside from being a signer, an established signer, what are other criteria that they need to meet in order to qualify?
Really the criteria that I walked through a few questions ago.
So there's nothing else. It's just and they have to apply, and they have. Is it fair to say that it's almost like a proof of stake mechanism to some degree? They have a stake in the system, so that's partly why they qualify.
Yeah, in some ways.
And who was choosing the final 15?
Yeah, so basically, the way this process worked was that we held an open nomination process where anyone could submit applications to become a signer, or any of the current Stack signers could submit an application to become an sBTC signer, excuse me. And from that process, the sBTC working group evaluated these signers based on this set of criteria. And so we looked at, you know, the criteria that we walked through a moment ago, their experience, their infrastructure setups, et cetera, and decided based on that criteria, and also things like geographic distribution and having a diverse mix of signers that bring different things to the network.
So, okay.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I just wanted to bring it back to SIP28, right? So now that you've kind of defined that, why are we here? Like, what do you want from us in the community?
Yeah, so basically, again, this is the first step in the sBTC activation process, and it was important that the community is aligned on this process for how we choose signers, that there is a certain amount of credibility and trust in the protocol that you get from having the community weigh in on these sorts of matters. And so really the goal for this vote, which kicks off next Wednesday, by the way, we can talk about the timeline on that, is that, you know, really we can confirm the process of that the signers are selected by, solidify this first group of signers, and from there, we can start to onboard these signers in preparation for the protocol. So it's really important for us that we can, you know, go through this vote, confirm the signer set, begin onboarding them, giving them all of the resources that they need to actually get their systems set up and ready to go for sBTC. It's a critical prerequisite for launching the protocol. So that's why we're here today and talking to you guys, trying to get everyone ready for the vote.
Cool. And so actually I was going to ask when the vote is. You said voting starts next Wednesday?
Voting starts next Wednesday on the 30th. It'll run through November the 11th. And I have the exact stacks block heights for you here. It starts at block 868,000 on Wednesday, October 30th, and it will end at 869,749. So Monday, November 11th. So the vote will run for around 10 days.
Okay. And is this the same as a normal SIP vote? I think it's I think 80 million stacks has to go towards a yes vote for it to pass. Is that the same criteria as a general SIP vote?
Yep, it's the same as a general SIP vote. This process went through the governance cab. So the governance cab signed off on it earlier this week. And then the actual activation process will follow similar processes that we had for like SIP 21 and others before it.
But do I understand it correctly? Like you need a certain amount of votes in order for that to go through?
We do, yeah. We need at least 80 million stacked STX to vote yes in this proposal, above the threshold. Sorry, 80 million total STX, and of that, a supermajority must vote yes.
That's such an interesting criteria for a vote.
Yeah, maybe I'll give a little bit of context to the reasons for this type of vote. You can think of it almost like a nation state where people hold dollars, then they even like lock up their dollars for a long period of time in order to signal that they are here long-term aligned citizens. If you just have voters who just come in and buy a bag and then just vote, it doesn't quite make sense because they can leave any time of the day. Whereas like using stacked STX, you know, if you are staking with extras, if you're staking with fast pool, you're locking up for a minimum period of 2 weeks, right? And typically people lock up for much longer. So these are the type of voters that we we're trying to sort of think about them and think, okay, we must have certain amount of long-term stakeholders in this ecosystem to come out and vote. And if you just say 1 million STX, that's not a lot of STX to like in the ecosystem. So I think we want to have high enough, but not like too low, not too high, and a reasonable amount, signaling that they almost like agree with the alignment of where the network is going.
Yep, and here that was for locked STX, but users who hold STX but aren't locking it can also vote, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Do those votes get counted towards the threshold? I'm sorry, unstacked stacks voting also gets counted towards the threshold, or no?
They have a separate threshold, separate like they're like liquid state stacks basically. They have a threshold of 66%, if I remember correctly, from the SIPs. So if like 1 million non-staking people come out to vote, at least 66% from 1 million, so it would be 660,000 STX, for example, to pass.
So they just have a reduced weight in their voting towards the threshold.
Yeah.
So just clarity for me. So the 80 million stacks, that doesn't sound like it means 80 million new stacks, right? It just means like if you already have stacks in the system, like your vote plus all the others, essentially everyone that's stacking when we vote, as long as there's 80 million in the game. Does that sound right?
Yeah, you need to have 80 million to come out.
Okay, that makes sense.
Through decentralization. I love this.
Yeah, and the real point there is really just to be able to show skin in the game, right, Hero?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's all kind of a means to an end. The end goal is signal your support. And in Bitcoin, they don't even have this kind of mechanism to vote with their Bitcoin, right? But somehow you kind of want to get a feel of the network. And this is one of the ways to get a feel of the network. And you can imagine if a lot of the network says, like, no, that probably gives you something to think about. And maybe you go back to drawing board, change something to make the network more aligned.
I think here, the problem is a lot of people in our community don't even know about this. So it's not even like they're gonna not be interested to vote. They just don't really know that they can participate in having a say, So this is something I'm gonna be working on from my side to explain a little bit.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's why we're here today, right? I
didn't even know about this, to be honest.
And there's an education campaign from the foundation coming out. Is that right, Andre?
Yeah, definitely. So we'll be publishing a blog. It might be up by the end of this call, if not later today, that will basically detail a lot of this conversation and everything that the community needs to know about the SIP. And then we'll have, about a week or just under a week of education and awareness. Folks can take the time to understand the SIP, and then about 10 days of actual voting time.
And I mean, this is, I'm almost like relying on, you guys' feedback to say, how can we even improve the awareness? Like, this is not something I have a silver bullet for. So if you guys have great ideas, last time we started trialing this SIP content contest. So we're going to run it again. So all the different community members, they can create like a video, songs, or a thread. So a little bit like what you guys do a lot in Stacking DAO or Zest, like people create like DeFi threads and things like that. They can submit that to application, and there's some winning prize. I think there's one.
Are you going to do that through Zero Authority DAO or where?
I was just
exactly.
I was going to suggest. I wonder if there's a way to incorporate a reputation badge into the voting process, so that people get a reputation badge and a little bit of on-chain reputation. Haddy, what do you think about that?
This is something I've spoken about, and I think we've spoken about, Peace and Hero, I think it's vitally important that we start showing the community that are actually voting and coming out to vote, and having, say, each time people vote on certain SIPs, you actually get a badge to recognize that, hey, I've supported the network, I understand, I've learned, and I get the badge as recognition of being a part of the community and part of this ecosystem. So I think it's super important if we can do that. And I think that's also enticing to show people's progression. Like I was here in 2021, 2022. I was here for SIP 28, SIP 30. I'm here. So I think
Right.
I really like that idea.
Sorry,
yeah,
Stacksy?
down line.
4 days to build this. Let's go.
Easy.
No, but it's great. I think like even a year ago, like we didn't have this, right? So like to Stacksy's point, like every little thing we do is going to add up. So there's some people on this call. I think what Hero said is great. I know 300 is listening, so you know there's something for him, a song for him to put together. And yeah, I think you know the more we get out, the better. So we'll just keep pushing.
Question. I actually have a question now. So if we don't get the necessary amount of stakers to vote in order to reach the what we need to reach, what happens? We need to prolong sBTC. It's gonna not go ahead until we have the votes, or you're still gonna kind of, is that in the contract? Is that like, how does that, who decides?
Yeah, if we don't meet the threshold or we don't have a supermajority of people voting yes, then the SIP would not be approved. And so we wouldn't be able to activate sBTC without that. Say again?
So this is right. So if people want sBTC and they need to get involved and get into the vote, understand why they're voting yes, because they also, you know, we're having a vote on this to make sure that people are, you know, we want as much input on this process as possible, because maybe there's stuff that we didn't see or that you guys didn't see that might make it worth changing. I don't see a whole lot of reason why people would vote against this, obviously, but there might be somebody that comes in with a perspective, and then we have to make adjustments, right? But it's really all about getting as much. We need to get more people involved in the SIP process in general. That's part of what this whole situation is. It's not just this SIP, which is super important. I mean, it's obvious why sBTC is a huge game changer for us, for Stacks. But we also need to get the community more engaged in these processes in general, so that there's never. I would say there's probably not. It's probably unlikely that we wouldn't meet the threshold in this situation. But one way to make sure that we do keep making that likely is to keep getting people engaged. So the more things we can do, the better. And yeah, go ahead, Andre. I know you have more to say.
Yeah, no, I think that's well said. The one thing that I wanted to add there is even maybe to zoom out for a second, right? Like, why does all of this matter? And the way that we look at it right now, we know that there's a huge opportunity to activate Bitcoin as a productive asset. Bitcoin is the best form of money. It's the largest and most liquid asset that we have, but so few of it right now is being currently utilized in DeFi, right? A lot of it is being traded on centralized exchanges or centralized lending platforms, which exposes users to counterparty risk. And what we're doing with sBTC is making it really easy to bring all of that Bitcoin on chain. There will be opportunities to earn a yield on your Bitcoin and start to really make it productive, let that yield compound over time. I think that'll be really attractive to a lot of Bitcoin holders. Being able to borrow against your Bitcoin. I speak to a lot of investors that have a lot of Bitcoin, and this is by far the most popular use case, because if you're sitting on a lot of Bitcoin, you may want to access fiat or dollars without taking a capital gains tax on that, right? So maybe you want to go out, buy property or access leverage to increase your gains. Being able to do that on chain in a way that completely simplifies the borrowing process is going to be a huge improvement on that. And we have protocols like Zest and Granite and others that can make that process really easy. And when you look at the way that the DeFi ecosystem on Stacks is right now, all of these applications are essentially waiting for a trust minimized Bitcoin asset to really start to aggregate this Bitcoin liquidity on chain so that they can bring in new users, provide a better user experience for interacting with that Bitcoin. And so just wanted to put that into context where like, this is the time for sBTC. I think Stacks has a great advantage in the broader landscape right now because of its institutional backing, because of its longevity. And sBTC is really this missing block that we have here. As of next week, we'll have better performance, faster blocks, Bitcoin level finality. sBTC is really this missing piece to bring all that together, activate this. And so it's really important that everyone watching this goes out to vote. Vote yes on the proposal, activate the signer set so we can begin taking the steps necessary to go and actually launch sBTC.
So thank you. So actually with that in mind, like, right, if I wanted to vote this second, what do I do?
So the vote opens on Wednesday.
Okay.
So it's not open yet, but you can go to stx.eco. That'll be the voting website. Maybe we should put that in the show notes so folks that are listening to this will be able to follow along. I'll link it to you guys here. And the vote will be on this page. And so when that goes live, again, a lot of this will be in the blog post that we share later. But when the vote goes live, folks just need to head over to that website.
Perfect. Will there be any other SIPs after that? Like what's sort of missing before sBTC?
So for our launch, for this launch, this is the only SIP. There will be, or there may be future SIPs in the future, especially when we start to think about what are the ways that sBTC becomes integrated into the Stacks network. So we'll likely need to go through some more updates there, but for this, this is it.
Great. So could I ask a question from a layman's terms on this, Andre? So sure. The SIP is super important that we all get involved as a community and we define and we all agree that this is how we vote for the people who are going to sign off for to unlock sBTC for us. And we all want, so we've got fast blocks, sBTC, which means it opens up, it's literally like throwing lighter fluid on the Stacks network, because now we will literally be moving at lightning speed and we'll have Bitcoin where we can all trade in Bitcoin. So have I grasped that correctly, how important it is for everyone and to open up the economy on Stacks?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think this is what's needed to have a flourishing DeFi ecosystem, to activate a Bitcoin economy, to use Bitcoin for payments. This is really the missing piece there.
And this will help us bring on commercial entities as well, because now we can move, just like Lightning Network, we will now have a superior network with our own code base, and we'll have Bitcoin available for everyone to trade. So this opens up for commercial entities to get on board now.
Absolutely. And already having a lot of conversations around that with businesses that are recognizing that and want to integrate it.
So we no longer need Visa and MasterCard is what you're telling me?
Nothing that I can talk about today on this call.
Right.
Okay, mum's the word.
DM Andre for that alpha.
That is this decentralized? I'm just asking because I don't think that exists.
Sorry, what did you say?
I'm asking, is there any other ecosystem that's this decentralized? Because I feel like there's nothing that comes close.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think that decentralization has been in the Stacks DNA since the very beginning. And we've seen that in how the different core development companies have become distributed. That this process is a testament to how we arrive at decisions as a community and handle the development process. So, yeah, I don't think so, Stacksy.
Very cool. So, assuming the vote goes through, and we're going to do our part where we can in our community to make sure we get as much involvement in that process as we can, and we should be able to get plenty of people participating. I'm not worried about that because I know we're going to do it. So the vote passes. How long after that do you anticipate? And I realize it's a variable. There's a lot of variables there, but what's the timeline for us seeing an active sBTC, assuming everything passes this vote?
Yeah, so basically the vote ends on November 11th. I would expect that we need at least a few days to tally up all the votes and communicate that to the ecosystem. But let's call it, early like in that middle of November, we'll have the final signer set. We'll already start onboarding folks so that they can start getting their systems ready to sign, start testing that. And then basically the sBTC is planned to go live before end of year.
Awesome.
Maybe I won't go too deeply into the exact timelines yet, but I'm feeling good that before end of year, towards the middle of Q4, we will have sBTC live on mainnet.
We might be able to do some DeFi on Bitcoin DeFi on Stacks for Christmas.
Yeah,
that's to warm up those BTCs, huh?
Andre promised us for Christmas, so
he said it live. I do have a can I ask a question?
Great Christmas gift for all of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Only for the degens.
Yeah.
So there's a piece of this I feel
some
like
sBTC in your stocking.
Yeah. There's a piece of this I feel like we touched on, but like we didn't get in. So one of the biggest things about, tell me if I'm, because I might be wrong here. One of the things about these signers is, aren't they also sort of holding amongst them the BTC? Because I have Bitcoin, right? I'm pegging it in, I'm getting sBTC back. It's a one-to-one sort of thing. But my Bitcoin is somewhere. So isn't that sort of where it is?
Yeah, exactly. So when you bridge bridge Bitcoin to sBTC, you're moving the Bitcoin to the sBTC protocol. It's essentially a threshold signature wallet. And so what basically happens is that you have a private key that is distributed amongst all the signers. And the shards of that key are distributed amongst the signers. And so it requires a 70% threshold for any Bitcoin to be processed in and out of the protocol. And so that means that signers have to come to consensus to allow for sBTC to be minted and for Bitcoin to be withdrawn back onto the L1. And so, again, that is why the signer selection process is so important, because these are the folks that are responsible for maintaining the protocol.
And it's
question. So what if one of the signers now turn out to be the bad guy? Can that transaction still go through with the rest of the signers, or how like what's the percentage of how many have to agree?
Yeah, so it's a 70% threshold majority. And so that means if one signer turns out to be malicious or nefarious or is compromised in some way, it wouldn't affect the liveness, it wouldn't affect the security of the protocol. As long as 30% of the signers are honest, it means that that Bitcoin can only move into the withdrawal address that the user specifies, right? So that 30% is like a backstop against that sort of malicious activity.
So 5
hours backdoors where they can get in the code and the Bitcoin can not arrive in the wallet of the owner.
Sorry, I missed the first part of your question.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
You can ask it.
Huh?
You can ask it.
No, I'm just asking, like, because I'm not really technical, right? So is there any way that someone can hack that transaction and it goes somewhere else, like through a backdoor or something in the code?
So in theory, there are a few ways that could happen. Like, I think that, like, one scenario would be like if somehow more than 30% of the sBTC signers are compromised. So it would require 11 out of 15, so that super majority of folks to become compromised. Again, it's why it's important that we have picked a distributed signer set that are spread out around the world, that we are taking these security best practices with signers that are in the business of securing their infrastructure, securing these keys. And so it's why, yes, selecting signers that we know have this credibility, it was super important for us.
It sort of
So
sounds like
basically it's not possible because they will see that there's something malicious and they will not approve the transaction, correct? Okay, I got
Correct.
it.
and like looking through this list, it almost seems like if these people screw up, they're sort of screwing themselves, right? Because they're deep in the network, and you know,
they have business models that depend on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're all
multi-billion-dollar businesses that are.
they're all
behind this.
public entities, right? They're institutions. They got a reputation to uphold. And if you look through these lists, like most of them are pretty well known, and in the future there'll be more, I'm sure. And this is partly what secures. If they're just like 15 random people, like, you know, some of the community member from Twitter, I would be very skeptical. But these people, they all have their own website, they have their own team distributed, and yeah, it's unlikely they will do something like that. And plus, even if they do it individually, they can't do it. They gotta call up all the other 11 in order to really collude, if you like.
Yeah. And one more thing, I just wanted to talk on that point about security, Stacksy. I think it's a good point that's worth addressing. So just to be clear, all aspects of the sBTC protocol are going to be audited. That includes the protocol itself, as well as the bridge website, the web application, any like user-facing sites that users interact with will have to go through that same rigorous audit process. That's point number one. Two, we've actually just recently announced a new security partner has joined the Stacks ecosystem. I'm super excited about it. They're called Asymmetric Research. They are one of the best security firms, period, much less the entire space. They spun out of Jump Crypto, were early contributors to protocols like Fire Dancer and Wormhole, and you know, are validators on other ecosystems as well. So as a core security contributor, that means that they're not just auditing the code at the end of the development process, but they are developing this alongside of us, ensuring that everything that we do has this strong foundation of security behind it. So really excited about that. And we'll also be doing programs like working with like Immunified bug bounty programs, white hat hackers, et cetera. Just really trying to minimize that surface of potential issues that could go wrong with it. And so, you know, we treat security like a first-class citizen, and I think it's really important when you're storing people's money, you know.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. So I know I already know this, but is it one signer, one vote?
One signer, one vote. Yes.
So is it a vote or it's an approval, right? They're signing an approval to allow the transactions. That's actually
right.
So what's the process from a user's perspective as far as how long does it take to get through, or is there an expectation where I submit my transaction to Bridge? How fast is it going to be where it goes into going into a contract or a wallet, and then I see the sBTC? How long does that take?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I think that sBTC will have the fastest bridging times out of any tokenized Bitcoin asset. For the deposits, it'll take a maximum of 3 Bitcoin blocks. For withdrawals, it'll take a maximum of 6 Bitcoin blocks. And the reason we're able to do that is because of these finality rules that are activated with Nakamoto, where Stacks will always fork with Bitcoin. So it allows us to have higher assurances around the bridging operations.
So bridging, you're looking at roughly an hour and a half if it's a 30-minute block time.
They should be both under an hour, right? For 3 blocks, that's around 30
right. It could
minutes.
be 30 minutes. It could be 30 minutes, right? It could be 30 minutes. It could be up to an hour and a half if they're all long 30-minute blocks.
Yeah, on average they're 10 minutes though, right?
Yeah. So which is really fast. And then once it's on Stacks, it's as fast as Nakamoto blocks,
Exactly.
other SIP10 tokens. It's going to be seconds if testnet time
Exactly.
speeds are representative of what we're going to experience. Which is, if you guys haven't been using testnet or doing anything on testnet, the blocks are super fast. It's actually going really fast now, so it's going to be awesome.
Guys, I'm really
Stacksy,
sorry. I have
yep.
another space right now that I have to host, so I have to get off. Andrew, it was super nice meeting you, and I really understood things now. I will try my best to spread this information about the voting to the community, because they will be excited that they can take part in it. And love you all. Continue, please. So don't. And I'm really happy
Thank
that
you
I
so
chose
much.
this
Thanks,
one
Stacksy.
year
Yeah.
ago.
Thank you,
The
Stacksy.
best.
Thank you so much
Bye.
for joining us today, Stacksy. And always a pleasure. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye, Static. If I may throw a different topic, Peace, you were talking about the importance of people participating in the SIP process from a voting perspective, education, voting, etc. But I'm thinking like SIP process also is a way to encourage innovation, right? These are all innovations on Stacks, whether it's innovation on the consensus changing level or non-consensus changing. In this case, it's this non-consensus changing, and there are many other innovation around the ecosystem. So I was curious about, Andre, that you first, as a first-time SIP author, submitting a innovation proposal to the Stats Network, and from July, I think, was your first submission, and there was lots of back and forth. What has your experience been, and yeah, so could you share that a little bit, and how can we make it better for these innovators who want to come up with ideas? Share their ideas to the ecosystem.
That's a really good question, Hero. I think what I would like to find is finding the right balance between, upholding a high bar for the SIPs that are approved and, how we hold this process, while also being able to ideally speed up the amount of time it takes to go through the SIP process. And so, as you mentioned, we started this, I think we've published the first version end of June, maybe early July. I think end of June. So it takes about 4 months, which for an important SIP like this, maybe that makes sense. But also, I would love to see if there are ways that we can accelerate this. Right? It's super competitive. We want to be able to ship features quickly, and so I have an open question of what is the right balance there. I think maybe part of it is because I was a first-time SIP author, and so I had to educate myself on the process. There was a learning curve there. I do think that over the course of the experience, the SIP has gotten a lot better. The language is a lot more clear. I've gotten a really good feedback from a lot of the core contributors like Jude and Jesse and many others on it. So I feel really happy with how it's come along, but I also want us to be able to move quickly to make the upgrades to stacks that we need in order to just be competitive. So finding the right balance there is kind of something that I'm thinking about as an open question for the SIP process.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Yeah, that's something I would love to work with the foundation and maybe research a little bit. Maybe there are some sort of fast track method or different levels of getting SIP through quicker. And maybe we can explore that as an ecosystem together and put through a few test SIPs to see how it works. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be interesting to think about, what does SIPs look like in 2025? Are there ways that we can make this process easier for developers to contribute to Stack's core development that just makes their lives a little bit easier to get that done?
The tiered approach would be really good because you tier them and categorize them so you know which ones to take. Lower hanging fruit would probably get through a lot quicker. Is there a template? Have we set up a template for SIPs yet that it's easy to start the process?
There was. I kind of had to like go and find it. So maybe like, you know, ways that we can like surface it, just make the expectations very clear. Could be easy. Again, maybe it was just me, but that was my experience.
It'd be
No, I
really
do-
interesting.
I was going to say, I do think that there is an opportunity for Stacks in general to come up with a little bit more easy way to find some of the information needed for a bunch of different things in the ecosystem, including the SIP process. Do you think that it would actually help the process if there was more community engagement in public places like on Spaces and in live podcasts like this about the SIPs that are proposed, and even like before they're being proposed, having some, you know, more community input on the idea phase of the process?
For sure. I think having an open dialogue like this, where we can really drill into the ideas that are being proposed, the activation process, like it's super helpful. And the more that we have these conversations, it just increases the awareness for everyone to know how to do this into the future. Guys, I do have a call right after this at the top of the hour, so I should probably wrap here. But this has been a lot of fun. Really enjoying chatting with you guys.
Thank you so much, Andre, for coming on. I know we all got stuff coming up. We got actually the SIP call on X. Hero's got, and just starting at 11 a.m. So we're just running into that too. Just running over. Thank you so much for your time. This has been awesome. Any last word, Andre, before we go?
Just go vote.
Go vote. Get out the vote.
Get out the vote.
Timely. Yep. Yeah, we're working on that for you, brother. We're gonna make sure that won't be an issue. Thank you all for coming out. I'm not going to belabor it. I know everyone's busy. This has been great. Thank you again. Thank you to our panel, Gary, Stacksy, Haddy, the co-hostess with the mostest, and Hero. Always love it. Awesome stuff going on in this space. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you all for coming out today. And look for more of this stuff from DeOrganized and the broader Stacks ecosystem. We have a great community here, and I love and a great developer community here. So super excited about the future. We have a lot to be bullish about. We are DeOrganized. Y'all have a blessed day, and thank you for coming.